So my name is Yasser elgebaly. I'm the founder and CEO of Smart Cloud Solutions. And I have John Barfield is our CTO and co-founder. We're a Texas-based company. And we've been in business for cloud for 12 years. But we started as OCP 2.5 years ago. And what we have done with OCP have pretty much accelerated our growth tremendously. And I always wonder myself, is like, why not everybody use the OCP hardware and concept? It's always mind-boggling for me if they know the benefits. So today we'll be talking about adapting the OCP hardware and how OCP made it so easy for us to scale. But we scale one very important thing. We scale up with social media platforms. So we are a social media platform alternatives. Any names of the social media platforms out there, we actually become one of the alternatives. So why do we use OCP is very important for you guys to understand. It made a huge difference with us when it comes to about scaling social media platforms. In social media platforms, you get people kicked out of one platforms, and then you have an influx of hundreds of thousands of users daily to come to your alternatives. And if you don't have the right hardware, it will become a problem. And you guys have seen social media platforms out there that they literally had to go out of business because procurement, hardware is the biggest challenge. So when you have a community of users that get kicked out of social media and they come to you, you need to be able to be ready in literally 24 hours to take all these users and your platforms. So we have multiple platforms out there for social media, and we don't do the hosting piece, but we actually use our platform for alternative to Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and all of that. And so far, we've been scaling to millions of users, and every day they come to us, they have a home. For us, it was a hardware challenge. And what we did was we actually spent almost 2 years to master the hardware, but we were mastering using a Smart OS. And as if you guys not familiar with Smart OS, the name might not ring the bell like they say. Smart OS is Olumus, which Solaris, Oracle bottom, Olumus. We took Smart OS and we actually made it, we become the first in the world to make Smart OS works for OCP hardware. And with help from OCP, especially Steve Helvey and Maytag, and some of our vendors, we were able to actually run Smart OS on the OCP hardware. It was a huge challenge, and it made it possible through the help. And at the end, we were able to run our social media platforms on the hardware. Biggest challenge we had at the beginning was not a lot of people know it's Smart OS. So when you tell somebody it's like Smart OS, they say, is it Linux? No, it's not. It's Unix, it's Solaris. So to run Unix and Linux together on a hardware, it was a challenge. But we were able to run through it, and we made it possible to start our social media platforms on our own hardware and software. The good news is that we now have mobile apps on the App Store that has millions of users using these platforms that runs on that hardware. But the good thing for us is when we order hardware, we go to Maytag and say, we need a rack. The rack comes in configured with everything that we need, including the OS. So what it happens in that process is that we were 45% faster and increased capacity than traditional hardware. And that's why I always say, it's like, why everybody not using OCP? And the cost saving was tremendous, and we're talking about 50 to 60%. But the most important thing is that the procurement, when you hear from traditional legacy 19-inch, you hear the names, you're talking 9 to 12, 13 months. Of course, 1 year. OCP, it was 60 to 90 days. Now, what you do on social media platform, if you don't have your app with the screen that says, sorry, we're not available, users will leave you. They will go back. So we had to have a platform that allowed us to scale overnight. Most of the time, a lot of people ask us is, do you host? Do you provide hosting? We don't. Why? It's because we've been in the hosting business for 12 years, and the problem with hosting business with us is we can't keep up with hyperscalers. So we took a piece of our business and we expanded, which is the SaaS model for mobile phones, which is mobile apps. And we picked a little small niche, which is social media platforms. And as you guys know, in the last 2 years, social media platform become a challenge with a lot of people getting kicked out. Well, we got a home for them. Next month, we will have 15 million users on some of our mobile apps. Next year, we're looking at 100 million users. So the funny part is, when you look at it, it's without OCP, we would have never been able to sustain that growth. And most of the time, when you start building a mobile app for social media, you have to expect 1 million users come in one night. It took Netflix almost 9 months to get the first 3 million users. But now, if you don't get 2 million users in 48 hours, your apps start crashing and all of these crazy stuff. So OCP for us is a very important partner, but at the same time, we relied on one of our favorite partners, Advantage SPC and Maytag, because we don't want to deal with hardware issues. So we have established a process with the hardware vendor where when we call them, when we order racks, they know the firmware, they have our operating systems, they know the network, they know everything, and the rack shows up, plugs in, it's up and running in less than 1 week. Traditional hardware, that process will take us 9 months. So you guys can see the difference. So I want to show you guys a couple things that we had when it talks about our solution. Most of the time, a lot of people ask us, why can't you provide hosting? And like I said before, we're trying to keep up with the hyperscalers, and we can't. You can't compete with AWS. You can't compete with Microsoft. So we came up with 2 solutions for some of us, like social media platforms. SmartOS, that runs purely on SmartOS. That includes the storage, everything. And we came up with a newer version of our platforms that allows us to get to the level that we can say, yes, we have platforms that we can host things. And we used Kubernetes. And most of the time, what a lot of people talk about Kubernetes, they talk about how you can actually have a Kubernetes cluster. And the solutions we have will allow us to go with someone that wants to have applications like SaaS applications and software and things like that. And we build these clusters on Open Compute hardware. We become now software agnostics because we have a very powerful hardware. Our platforms, they have dashboards, just to give stage to you. And our UI is pretty much one of the most intuitive UI that we've built that allows us to manage our entire cloud. And like I said, keeping up with the Johnsons, the hyperscalers, I call them that, is very challenging because we're a small company. Even though we're social media platforms, I think we have room for people coming into us and saying, hey, what can you do so I can host my Cassandra at your platforms? And most of the time, when people ask us about SmartOS, it will be easier for us to say, don't worry about SmartOS. How about a Kubernetes cluster we can give you access to and give you that piece? So most of the time, when we talk about our hardware and the sales of our hardware, we don't really sell hardware. We can refer you to people, but at the same time, we don't want you to go through the challenges. We would tell you all about it. The challenges we went through, including when we were plugging in our hardware in the data center. And by the way, in the US, there's not a lot people know anything about OCP hardware. So when our hardware shows in the data centers, everybody asks us, and we go, say, it's just a Bitcoin mining machine, so don't worry about it, just plug it in. And we have people actually experienced electricians. When they saw the power plugs, they had no clue, what is that? And people were actually plugging in, looking at the other side. That's how mystery this is. And electricians working in big data centers for 25 years, they've never seen that hardware. So we went through these challenges, and we always want to give feedbacks for a lot of people to, if they have any questions or any challenges, we can help them. So as you guys see, we have information on our website that actually give you some information of what you need, but we're also available to help anybody that wants to know how we came to that level, building the cloud and then putting our platform on that cloud. The last thing I wanted to show you guys is what we actually have right now. That's our technology stack. Everything you see here in the green, it says complete. Everything in the blue is in progress. As you can see, the entire cloud core, everything you see, is actually on Open Compute hardware and running our software. So yeah, we do have CDN. And when you look at the Cassandra and the Kafka and all of these services, we actually bundle that into one single technology stack. And now we have those available for social media platforms and CMS and all of that to build that next generation social media platforms. So I think the next steps for us is just to see what we can do to contribute back to OCP. I think, like I said before, I always wonder why not everybody uses OCP. And it's always for us, it's always a mind-boggling question. I was actually talking to my partners last night. I was like, why everybody not using OCP hardware? And everybody's like, we don't know. It's tremendously cheaper, and it's faster to scale up, and it allows a lot of people to do what they want quickly. The biggest challenge you have in technology right now is speed to market. You get ideas, it's great ideas, But speed to market, before you go to market, you have, in 10 days, you'll have someone else in the world that goes faster than you. So if you don't have the right hardware, it's always a challenge with speed to market. So that's, I think, all I have. And I think we have some room for questions, and we can answer. So, thank you.
Any questions for Yasser and the team? Yeah, please.
Hey, Yasser. Hey, thank you for your time today. I know you put a lot of work in this. Me and you have had some conversations about the disconnect of why we're not seeing more people use OCP in the marketplace. What do you think can be improved as an ecosystem that we can see more companies, especially in the USA, adopt OCP in the future? What are your opinions?
So that's a very good question. Yeah, I was talking to you guys last night about this, is that there is 7 solution providers in OCP right now. That number needs to be 100. A lot of work that has been done in the last 12 years. OCP's done their own, but I think people need to take more risk. We took the risk. I think people need to take more risk. The hardware looks intimidating when you look at it, comparing to it's cool, and people have that mystery around it. If the 5 big guys used it, all it needs is, I think, people must start taking some risks. And there's always a reward in every risk. We took the risk, and that reward was tremendous. So I say solution providers need to go from 7 to 100, and people need to take the risk. So.
Question to that. Do you think there is anything on the OCP side as far as press releases, marketing? Do you feel like that's being underserviced? Could that be expanded on? Or do you think it's going to be more of a POC, word of mouth, that's going to?
I'll leave that to Steve.
Yeah. So when Yasser said there's 7 solution providers, he means the SI type of integrators that these guys are. So we have over 50 vendors that are part of the reseller program. So OCP grew up with this idea that I'm going to disaggregate the supply chain. So I'm going to be able to go buy my different components. In a traditional channel, let's say one of the large OEM channels, you have skill set, you have training, you have bench resources in your own company that know these other hardware platforms quite well. So as Yasser said, do I take my guys and say, go learn this? Or do I take them and say, all right, we're going to stay traditional OEM, even if it's a bit more pricey because I have talent sitting there. So more systems integrators taking the risk of saying, I can build a business around this. Europe has done a great job. Christoph, prior to this, is another example of somebody that's taken OCP and built a business around it. Europe has been faster than America taking risk about building open source, open hardware systems integrators. We're constantly doing, this is a great example of how big the event is. There is more awareness, but there's also more effort on the ODMs to supply and want to address the enterprise market. Right now, it's a bit top heavy where the ODMs are focused a bit more on the top end of the market. And as the ODMs serve that market and supply chains mitigate a bit, then you'll see the ability for enterprise nodes and smaller volumes to be created. So volume is a play in this, whether or not you have the volume capacity. So even the good thing about these examples, what we're trying to do in the deployments track is say it is possible to do this at smaller scale. There are some things on the supply chain which you probably had to adjust, which is forecasting and things like this. You just can't pick up the phone and order a rack. So talk about how you forecast.
So first proof of concept we didn't forecast, unfortunately. So we had to take some risks. And like I said, it was a mystery for us to use hardware. But biggest challenge for us was colos. There's not even a single colo in the US that has that mentality about open racks. The largest ones, when we say open racks, they were showing us telecom 2-post racks. So you have these racks showing up at the data centers and the colos don't know anything about it. That was our biggest challenge, is how can we get a colo to trust us that this is 420 volt, but it's 3-phase and it's only 7 amps. So, yeah.
Sorry to cut it off. We have to stay on time, but thank you very much,
No, thank you.
Yasser. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you. And we'll make way for the next talk from AWS.